Episodes of the Green Corn Rebellion Show are sponsored by Oklahoma Progress Now. Oklahoma Progress Now is a 501c4 organization focused on building progressive power in Oklahoma. Their primary efforts are on developing progressive content for a 21st century audience, coalition, and capacity building across progressive organizations and causes, and working to see elected leaders who are more responsive to their constituents and the needs of the many. Areas of focus include progressive messaging and communications, coalition building and resource sharing, and focused progressive policy goals. You can check out their Twitch live streams, and they go live on Facebook on at noon, Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays. Please support this organization. It's a really great organization. It's just getting started here in Oklahoma. Thank you. Now enjoy the rest of the video. Hello, this is the Green Corn Rebellion Show, and today I am here with comedian John F. O'Donnell, who used to be one of the correspondents on the show Redacted Tonight on RT America. How are you doing today?
I'm good, man. I'm doing good enough, Thanks for having me on.
Welcome. Thanks for coming on. So, first question I have here is, where are you from and where did you grow up at?
Okay, well, I'm a Jersey kid. I grew up in Jersey, New Jersey. I was born in Hudson County, which is kind of like right on the other side of the Hudson River from New York City. So it's just sort of right on the other side there. And then at one point in my life, I moved to Morris County, which is kind of more suburban New Jersey. Yeah, I mean that's where I grew up, and it was all right. And then I went to college in Ann Arbor, Michigan, at the University of Michigan, which is a cool place. Ann Arbor is this really great town. It's like kind of this bohemian little leftist kind of open-minded paradise amongst the Midwest. It's kind of got like, sort of similar to maybe say like a somewhat similar to say like a like an Austin or a Burlington or whatever. But maybe a little bit more university oriented. But yeah, Ann Arbor was great. Like, you know how there's like the Lauryn Hill album, The Miseducation of Lauryn Hill. Like I say, the miseducation of John F. O'Donnell happened in Ann Arbor, Michigan, because that's when I like really kind of started learning what was really going on in our country, like our real history, what was currently going on geopolitically and stuff like that, from classes, but also from just people who were living in that town. Because it's like a bunch of academics and kind of like people like that and coffee shop type revolutionary type people. And then it sort of also has this sort of like bohemian aging kind of hippie vibe too. So it's like there's a lot of it's very conducive to good conversation. So yeah, like that's where I started doing stand-up comedy and stuff like that. Yeah, so then I did that. So I started stand-up when I was in college, and basically split my time between college and stand-up. And basically, I was like the first time I was like learning about like Bill Hicks, who's this really great political comic who's very ahead of his time, who would like really, really talk about politics in a super funny way, and it really hadn't been done like that before. And he still sort of is like the gold standard for that in a lot of ways. Like he's still like a lot of people in the UK's favorite American comedian, and no one's been able to kind of dethrone that in decades. And so I was learning about him, and I was like, and I was finding out about Noam Chomsky, and it was like, and I was like, my mind was being like fucking open and blown. I was like, this is ridiculous. And I really remember taking it all very personally and being angry and resentful that I was like, holy shit, my schools and my government, my country, everybody lied to me. They lied to me. You know what I mean? Like they just because I happen to have a nature of curiosity, and I'm looking into these things, that I'm finding this stuff out. But this has just been whitewashed, and so I was like really like I was angry and very very politically radicalized through college. Like, I remember taking the bus down to DC towards because I was in college in the early aughts, so like I remember taking a bus down to DC to protest the invasion of Iraq, the leading up to the 2002 2003 invasion, Gulf War II. And then I remember then I was studying abroad in Ireland, in Dublin for a year. That was like later in then that was like later in 2002 into 2003, like the and and I remember being an American over there at the time when George W. Bush was president, towards the build up to that war. As an American, you were such an asshole until proven otherwise. It was like people would come up to you and they'd be like, "Oh, you're American? Did you vote for George W. Bush?" Just like straight up, you know. And I'd be like, "No, I didn't." You know, that dude's no, I didn't. Um, and I remember like protesting on the streets of Dublin as well with people about that war. Um, and it was funny though; these Irish people at the time, like they still had their economy was really good because in the 90s the Irish had like a really strong economy. Their economy was known as the Celtic Tiger because they had really good like kind of like low corporate taxes and like English speaking highly educated workforce, right? So they kind of like all these kind of tech companies and everything went in there. And I'll tell you, like Irish people did not deal with having money for the first time in their lives particularly well. They became very materialistic very quickly because there's an old saying that like in the 80s the only thing that Ireland exported was people, because the economy was so bad. But so these Irish guys, who, and I love Irish people. I mean, come on, they're the most fun people in the world. But anyway, like some of them would be like, you know, did you vote for George W. Bush? And you're like, I'm like, no. And the people that would be yelling this at me and are like talking shit about Americans, we like Irish guys wearing like full Levi's denim outfits, like smoking Marlboro Light cigarettes, drinking Budweiser, and eating McDonald's. I'm like, you are more American than I would ever want to be. Like, you know what I mean? I wouldn't wish the amount of American you are on my worst fucking night, on my worst enemy, and you're giving me shit. You hypocritical. So it's like, what I want you to take away from this, dude, is that there's garbage people every place.
All right. The second question I have here is, what got you interested in politics? Were you interested prior to college at all, or was college really your entire awakening?
Well, I think that, I mean, I took AP history in high school, you know, like, but the way, like, the kind of like banal way that it's taught, it wasn't particularly engaging to me. You know what I mean? It was all kind of just about like memorizing facts and being able to take a test based on that. I think that what it was there's a couple things. I guess it was the time. I'm trying to think the timing of it. Was that? Yeah, no, yeah, okay. I guess I started kind of like seeing certain things and finding out about stuff. Like you know, and a lot of the things, it's like these things, they almost sound cliche, but there's a reason they're cliche. It's because it makes sense. Like, you know, I was exposed to A People's History of the United States by Howard Zinn. You know, I mean, that book, you can't read that book and not at the very least be like, oh, I have to reassess things, or I have to look more into what's going on. I mean, it's a history book that talks about the history of our country from the perspective of the oppressed people, of the people that did not win, you know, because usually, you know, the victors write history. So that's why that book is so awesome and interesting. So it was that sort of thing. And I remember also specifically, like, I took this really interesting philosophy class. It was like a philosophy class that was trying to explain the mechanism that created the spawning of our consciousness. And it was like super difficult to understand. Basically, the poor professor, he basically had this theory about it, but the theory was so complicated that his whole thing now is just trying to figure out ways to explain the theory to people so they could understand it. Like, that's basically what he was trying to do. So I remember there was one student in the class who was like super smart, or super like kind of was getting it. So he basically, it was very clear, he just pivoted a lot of the attention towards that kid to try to figure out, to strategize how to explain it to other people. Because it's like, these are like papers and stuff that have been under review by other philosophers for years. It's this guy's name is Eric Lormond, and he's this philosophy professor around, it's like around theories about consciousness. Also, I noticed that he was like the publisher of this like alternative newspaper, that was like a very politically radical paper. And I still remember it was the first time I found out from that, like how much shady shit, like Coors Light and the Coors family historically did. Like over the years, their family have donated a lot of their personal, like a lot of money through their personal fortunes to anti-LGBTQ organizations, all sorts of shit. I mean, his name is Adolf Kors. I'm just saying, whatever. Don't judge a book by its name, I guess. But what I'm saying is, it's like, oh, so in addition to that being a really shitty tasting beer, it's also a shitty company. Good to know. So one day I go into his office hours and I ask him a question about politics, and we end up talking for 3 hours straight about politics. He's basically just kind of like laying out his take on a lot of things. And I'm just like, I'm asking questions, I'm listening, and it's basically he's just like kind of like pushing me through these little levels of cognitive dissonance, you know what I mean, over the course of like a number of hours. And because I'm an open-minded person, so then it was like I think it was starting to read that stuff, and then I got a book that was like all of the the clandestine things that the CIA did. You start seeing how much we messed with so many countries, especially all over, the whole stuff in Latin America, how sad that is. Like booting out these leaders that gave a fuck about the people for these despots just for our own fucking commercial interests. Ugh, gross. Which is crazy to me. I really find it so difficult to stomach that the American population, like regular folks, if they had context, they would have empathy and they would have sympathy and compassion for folks that are trying to get into our country from other countries. They would understand that it's not just happening in a vacuum, like they would have a nuanced perspective on it. But also, also the flip side of it, like folks that are like more like that are separated from like that are very very like pro like more like quote unquote lax immigration, but are separated from it. There is an element where there are folks that are struggling, and there is a job security thing that they are worried about. There is an element that exists too. It's like we have to have these conversations where we see both sides of what's going on, because the fact that we're at each other's, and I know I'm getting off topic, but basically, is that okay?
Yeah, you're fine.
Basically,
Go ahead.
basically, the fact that we have right now, everything that's happening in this country, that we still have this left-right divide, and we're fighting amongst each other, and we are at each other's throats, as in all this misdirected anger, while without question, through these bailouts, the amount of further upward redistribution of wealth to the super rich, to the 1%, to the 0.01%, whatever the fuck you want to call it, the fact that is happening right now, and they're using that, they're implementing that shock doctrine, the thing that Naomi Klein always talks about, in order to rob us blind even more than the 2008 bailouts. And we're not all just together on that, regardless of if we believe in the same timeline of catastrophic climate change or not, or even about whatever, or even right now, I know it's crazy to say, but like reproductive rights, all that sort of shit, right? Obviously, I'm a very left-leaning dude, but it's like all of these different things. And okay, people in New York who are under crazy pressure, and it's like super, super dangerous and shouldn't go out, right? And like being infuriatedly angry with some like old blue collar dude on the steps of Wisconsin who's scared that he's gonna fucking lose all of his money and shit like that, right? Is he wrong? Is like, yeah, maybe yes, if he's not flattening the curve. But I mean, if that's what the news is showing these two groups, they're socially engineered to fucking hate each other. So we don't come together to be like, hey, wait a minute. Why did our country decide to say, oh, you know what, everybody's going to lose your jobs, but we're going to like extend unemployment benefits like a little bit, and then we're going to do some bureaucratic insanity thing to maybe give some loans to small businesses, but they're going to be so shady that some businesses aren't even going to want to take them because they don't even know they're going to get fucked over with the interest rates after the fact. And also, we're not going to let anybody in America know what a bunch of European countries did, which was they decided to keep everybody's salary or their pay at 80% of what they made, and give the businesses the overhead money that they need to stay open, but contingent that when this thing passed, that they would rehire their employees. That seems kind of like a better deal than fucking everybody out of their jobs and their businesses, and then after the fact being like, okay, your unemployment is up, you got your little crumbs, now go get a job where you can't possibly. Oh, and all you business owners that worked your ass off and somehow scraped open your fucking businesses in America, one of the most fucking top-down repressive economies in the fucking planet, you're fucked too. So I understand both sides' anger, and the fact that both groups are mad at each other, that's what I can't abide. So, that's how I got into politics. I mean, am I wrong? I mean, is it making sense, Gregory?
Yeah, you're right. Because that's what I was saying. Because I was saying to people that, they say that they think Trump is trying to reopen the economy now because he thinks having a bad economy is going to be bad for his reelection. And I was like, that was a choice that they made. That was a choice that collectively people in Congress and him made to allow all of this to happen when other countries, they didn't allow that to happen. That a lot of other countries are not about to go into total economic collapse simply because of a pandemic.
Yeah, or simply because our economy. Yeah, or simply because our economy is not open for 2 months. Yeah, it's so myopic. I'm sorry, your friends have said that. It's very myopic, and they've been manipulated. They have such a viscerally disgust response towards Trump that it clouds them from having actually like critical thinking about it. You know what I mean? This is insane. Like it's so much more than that. Like they're ushering in. It's actually really scary shit.
Yeah.
It's like here's the truth. Okay, the U.S. we're better than China at let's see. Okay, the whole manufacturing consent thing is very real here in America. We don't have to kill our journalists because they'll just never get to a level of prominence where they'll get any sort of widespread exposure. And if they do, they can so easily be discredited by the jackal corporate mainstream media hacks who will do the bidding of whoever the fuck tells them to do it. And the Americans will fucking believe it because we believe whatever shiny fucking object is put in front of our fucking face. So we don't have to kill our journalists here. China, what they're better at us, they're better than at us is that, okay, so obviously we have a surveillance state here and massive surveillance. China is way better at it. Theirs is getting super, super repressive, okay? It's like fucking Orwellian shit over there, okay? Like I just saw this fucking video where it was like it was a video of footage of people walking in a mall, and it was showing the surveillance stuff. The it wasn't just facial recognition; it was gait recognition, GAIT. Like they were figuring out how to group people based on the way that they walked and stuff like that. Wow. Because it's like, the Hong Kong protesters wear masks, so we have to do that, okay? Right now, I saw a thing on Channel 13 about COVID, and then it showed people in China how, like, now they don't have to use money anymore. They can just do facial recognition to get drink, like food and different shit like that, and that they're checking everybody's temperature, geothermally, all this shit. It's fucking horrendous. Like it's okay to critique China without doing it in the bullshit way where it's being used as a manipulation to make us hate China so we can slowly march towards war with them. Same thing we do with Russia, slowly march toward war with them with the Russiagate fucking zombie brains everybody fucking has for 3 years. And also the administration blaming China so it can cover up its ineptitude with dealing with the fucking pandemic. But that being said, China is a super fucked up country. So is Russia. Russia is such an authoritarian country, and everybody loves that dude so much that if a journalist there tries to get something like against the Kremlin going, all they have to do is say, "Oh, that dude is just he's just trying to undermine Russia because he's an American, like an American spy or stooge or something like that." They just say that, and then they just will show on the news who the person is, and then not say anything like, go get this guy. But good Russians want to be such good Russian nationalists right now. They'll just go out and fuck the dude up, So that sucks. Also, they killed journalists. But this is what's truly fucked. Is like all of these tech monsters in America, because most of the tech companies are in America, like that Eric Schmidt dude who was the head of Google, and then Alphabet, which is their overwhelmed now he's on like different government boards and stuff like that. Like he's on different like kind of certain like offshoots of the Defense Department sort of things. You could look it up. I don't know. But like him and others, they're basically pitching the government. They're basically lobbying the government, being like, hey, look, China's kicking our ass here. We got to catch up, man. You know, we got to implement this stuff, and this is the best way to do it. And they're kind of planning to use New York as the fucking petri dish test ground for it. And De Blasio, whatever, De Blasio, he's the mayor, but like Cuomo is totally selling out to Gates and all this stuff. And honestly, I'm just, for this part of it, this last thing I'm saying, I'm kind of just talking about some stuff that in a different article that Naomi Klein wrote in The Intercept that is like fucking mind blowing. This is crazy. You know what I mean? And if you have no context to know this stuff, I sound like a fucking lunatic. And it also, I'm sure it doesn't help that I'm yelling and my eyebrows look like I'm a fucking maniac, whatever. But what I'm saying is, this is what we should be united around. This is what we should give a fuck about. I mean, come on, dude. Am I, you know, what, right?
Yeah.
What are you going to say, no?
The third question I have here is, what got you into comedy? Like, what made you want to do stand-up and go into comedy and stuff like that?
Well, I'll tell you, I always wanted to be a comedian, like, growing up my whole life. Like, I remember when I was young that I always just liked the way it felt to make people laugh. Like, I always really enjoyed that, and I felt like I was conversationally funny, which I put a lot of value on for myself. And then I went on a vacation with my mother and my brother to Jamaica when I was in 7th grade, and we stayed at this this timeshare called Club Caribbean, 2 stars. All right, and we were staying in these sort of like little kind of like thatched roof little spaces, and there was a pool and everything. Most of the people that were there were actually European, because I guess it wasn't like a traditional like fancy hotel that Americans like to go to or whatever, right? So we're there, and they were having a talent show at the end of the week, and it got determined. Like, I made a friend, this kid Brandon from Canada. Me and him were pals, and then there was this guy named Pat who was like, he was like an 18-year-old guy from New York. He was there with his family, but there was he didn't really have anybody like his age to hang out with, so he was hanging out with us. And then my friend Brandon's father was like around too, so like they decided they were gonna write. I was gonna do stand up at the talent show, and they were gonna write the jokes. So like that guy and the kid from New York wrote the jokes, and I told them, and I won the talent show, and the prize was a bottle of rum, but they wouldn't give it to me because I was just a kid. So yeah, and then I ended up starting doing stand up when I was like 19, 20 years old. The first shows I did were open mics in New York City for a summer when I was home from college, and then when I went back to college, I started doing stuff in Ann Arbor and outside of Detroit and all that, and that kind of like greater Detroit metro area. I did that until I graduated. Then I stuck around the Midwest for another year and worked the road a little bit because I got hired by one booking agency to MC some really rough clubs where everybody hated me. But it was a good experience. And then moved to New York, which made sense for me because my family's from Jersey. And then grinded in New York for a very long time. And, and all paths lead to me and you talking right now, Gregory.
That's cool. How did you end up working for Redacted tonight on RT?
Well, I basically, so I've been in New York for a long time. Me and Lee probably met in, I'm going to say, probably met in 2005 or 6. And, he was doing his thing in New York. I was doing my thing. And we, we were pals. We always liked each other's comedy and a mutual respect for each other's comedy and stuff like that. But our careers were going in like very like sort of different paths. Like he was doing his thing, I was doing my thing, and we would cross paths here and there, but we weren't like constantly on shows together and stuff. And we actually have a at the time. I mean, now he's like, he's like we're very close. Like I love him like a brother. And when we were on the show together, we would like fight with each other like a married couple. Like, but never really about the politics, about the comedy. Like we would be like, because we would just really care to try to make it as funny as we could, So we would kind of like bicker about stuff, but it's because we appreciate what we're doing. But anyway, we have a mutual friend, my friend Nagin Farsad, super rad woman, comedian, author, podcaster. She's got a podcast called Fake the Nation on Earwolf now. And so she when Lee was trying to when Lee was got offered this show, he was trying to figure out who to bring in for auditions and stuff like that. And he asked Nagin, who I was roommates with at one point, and she suggested me. And then he was like, "Oh, that would be great." And then so he sent me initially the writing submission packet, like the writing sample he wanted me to do. So I, really tried my best with that, and he liked that. And so then they brought me to DC to do screen tests, and they like that, and they had me come back and do another one. They like that, and then I got hired for the job, which was cool. It's like a dream gig for me. One of my best friends from college, Andrew, like he knew how, politically kind of fired up I was in college, and how I was trying to do this political comedy on stage, but I really didn't have the experience yet. I didn't really have the tools in my bag to pull it off. But like he's like, dude, if you could have told the college version of yourself the job that you have right now, it's like you manifested that reality. It's amazing. And I was like, wow, you're right. And it wasn't a direct line, because basically I'm very open and vocal about this. Like I'm very cognizant of keeping my mental health central to my life. But I have bipolar 1 disorder. And it's definitely been a struggle over the years. There's been lots of ups and downs, hospitalizations, the whole nine. And I have found for me that being able to be a comedian and talk about that stuff publicly and have people laugh with me about it has been incredibly healing for me. It has recultivated for me a sense of self-worth many times in my life. And it's had also has had the effect that I'm humbled to say that other people are appreciative of it and make them feel less isolated about stuff like that. And that to me is like, if I could contribute to that in any way in this life, that's good enough for me. So my comedy started going in that direction after I had kind of a pretty public episode in New York, which was like a nightmare of mine, that after I'd already be establishing myself and my reputation that this would happen. But it did. But I clawed my way back, and I because before it happened, I'd given out so much goodwill to folks by just being nice to folks, that when I was coming back, people were rooting for me, and I also decided not to brush one speck of dirt underneath the carpet. I addressed what I went through on stage immediately, and it actually forced me to become a better comedian, because I had to figure out how to get funny enough and creative enough to make that more personal, darker stuff funny. And so I did. And then, there's been a lot of shit over the years. But now what's exciting, it's like this new, since I've left Redacted, and I was on Redacted for almost 5 years. I did over 220 segments for the show. Super, super proud of the work that I did on it. And now I'm starting this other thing, and I'm using comedy to talk about mental health issues. Like, I got this, the podcast is called Take Your Pills, Psychopath. And the log line is exploiting mental illness for personal profit, trademark. So people right away know that it's like ridiculous. But I get people on. I'm getting all these interesting folks on, and they're opening up and talking about all sorts of stuff. And even though it's new, I'm already getting response and feedback from people that are like, this is so cool. Like, I'm struggling with this, and it's nice to hear people talk about it, because the last domino that has to drop is all of this stigma and embarrassment and shame around mental health stuff. If you're not mentally ill in some capacity in the world in 2020, then you're fucking mentally deranged. Like, I don't even, so it's like, and the crazy part is, for people to get better from their mental illness, part of that is letting go of the shame of it. It's like, it's all connected. So there's so much going on. And yeah, dude,
All right.
I forgot the question.
My next question is, what was your favorite bit or story that you did on Redacted all those years?
Oh shit, dude. That's a tough one, man. And favorite is a weird adjective, because we're covering the fucking gnarliest stories that are being consciously suppressed by The establishment. I'll tell you the one. I'll tell you the one that spun me out and fucking totally freaked me out. There's a few that really freaked me out. I call this one the Bana Alabed affair. So there's this girl named Bana Alabed. At the time she was 7 years old, a Syrian refugee living in Turkey at the time with her parents. And basically, she was being kind of like trotted out on the news, like she was on CNN talking about how bad like Assad is and how they have to do like regime change in Syria to save the children of Syria. And here's the thing: Bashar al-Assad is absolutely a dictator, and his barrel bombs and all this bullshit, and he's a corrupt piece of fucking human garbage. But sadly, if we got rid of that particular corrupt fucking piece of human garbage, Al Qaeda, Al Nusra, or ISIS factions would go fucking run that whole fucking country. So like that's where it's at. You have to you know, you have to let the people have enough support that they can create some autonomy in their country. Not in bad faith go in there. But anyway, okay, so this is just in case any of your listeners want to call me an Assad apologist. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
that's so crazy. Anybody that just says like, if you get rid of him, it's gonna be like worse than like Afghanistan, Iraq. It's gonna be a fucking shit show disaster. I'm like, oh, you're legitimizing a dictator. Like, oh, I can't stand these rhetorical fucking played out arguments. Is it for life, dude? Forever we're gonna just sit by this? We're fucked. We're fucked. Anyway, okay, so I'm just kidding. But for everybody listening at home, it's funny, like when I say that and like Gregory doesn't really laugh and he's just sort of like looking at me back, I realize that without the laughter, it like totally comes across as crazy. But anyway, okay. So anyway, this girl that she has like a very large Twitter followers, like over 300,000 or more or something like that, and that she and it's apparently she says the tweets, but her mother tweets them. But one of them that was tweeted and then deleted was like, better to create World War III than allow Putin to make Holocaust Aleppo, like shit, crazy shit like that. And then you got Jake Tapper like saying like, if you want to know what's going on in Syria, like follow Bana Alabed. And then he tweets that and then deletes that. Turns out her father is an al-Nusra affiliate who is like a judge in like a Sharia court law. Like these guys are affiliates, like terrorist affiliated groups, but this is a telegenic girl who's just phonetically saying things in English that she can't really understand to basically try to pull at the heartstrings of Americans to get us on board for another regime change war. And here's why it really freaked me out. First of all, because it's fucking sick and twisted, but there are already examples of this. It's called atrocity propaganda. It was like towards the build up to the first Iraq War in 1991, many years before you were in gestation of birth, and and there was the Nuria testimony, which was when that girl cried in front of Congress and the subcommittee, crying that the Iraqi army was throwing the babies out of the incubators onto the streets. Wow, you hear that as a regular American, you're like, I guess we got that is viscerally disturbing. Turns out that was the daughter of the Kuwaiti ambassador to the U.S., who they've just planted her to do that. And now if you just type in Nuria incident or atrocity propaganda into Wikipedia, there's just a Wikipedia page just saying, look, that's the thing that happened. So this was a psyop, a psychological operation, in order to try to pull at the heartstrings of Americans. The reason that really freaked me out was because why does she have a viral Twitter account? Why does she, you ready for this? Why does she have a book deal with Simon & Schuster? And here's the third one. Why did she get named one of the top 25 most influential people on the internet by Time magazine? So for me, I start to spin out because I'm like, oh, wow. The tentacles of whatever fucking craziness is going on here goes beyond the kind of like, I don't know, like military media, like news industrial complex into the whole entire entertainment industrial complex. Like what sort of fucking system of control or place are we living in? And why me as a comedian am I making this fucking report? I'm a fucking stand-up comedian, dude. I got a joke called the bipolar disorder song. Like, and who are these fucking hacks on all these networks that I'm doing this shit, and I'm not only just like, and yes, I'm not sourcing this material. There are absolutely great independent journalists that find this stuff. Like, one of the journalists that was on top of this was that woman, Caitlin Johnston. And she does some really, really great reporting. Then there's some fighting within the left about them with some of my friends who are journalists. I don't know. I don't have fucking time for it. What I'm saying is, like, if you type "oops CNN" into YouTube, within the first few videos, you'll see the thing that I made. And it's got about 20,000 views, that one does. But in the full episode, it got more. And then there's a couple other uploads of it, like Lee's upload to his Facebook page. So, like, there's some eyeballs on it. And guess what? Like, there's like all, look, like, there was not that regime change did not happen in Syria. It's quite possible. And Trump is disastrous in so many ways. But it's very possible that if Hillary Clinton won the presidency, that would have happened. Because Donald Trump stopped funding the CIA program that was arming ISIS, Al Qaeda, Al Nusra to fight against
the White Helmets, right?
Regime. White Helmets are different there because they're supposed to be a helping group that like goes in and like gives aid, but they're actually they actually kind of create like false flags, chemical weapon things. The actual fighters, these quote unquote moderate rebels, yeah. Which is not a thing. But what I'm saying is the reason that he did that was because Tulsi Gabbard went over there on a fact-finding mission with Dennis Kucinich. People always seem to forget that part. And who's a great politician, but then fucking became like a Fox News commentator, but they don't even use him because he doesn't even like work. I don't even know why he's there. He's never on, but like, why would he go under contract with him? Maybe he's not anymore. I don't know. But anyway, so she goes over there. She sees like the Syrian people asking her, why, America? Why are you funding these terrorist groups against us? Like, why are you giving money to ISIS and Al Qaeda and Al Nusra? Al Qaeda, aren't they the enemy? Didn't they do 9/11 to you? Why are you doing that? She went over there and she met with Assad and was like, trying to do some diplomacy. You know what I mean? Comes back, introduced into Congress the Stop Arming Terrorists Act, does not get out of committee. Are you fucking kidding me? And then immediately the jackals of the media pounce on her. Like, she goes on CNN, like basically right before she went on a CNN appearance with Jake Tapper, right before the interview, the lead into it is priming the audience to hate her by showing Bana Alabed, that girl, and a handwritten letter saying like, Dear President Trump, if you like help the children of Syria, I'll be your best friend. Like, literally that. And he's reading that, and you're seeing a thing. Then he's like, Tulsi Gabbard, you went over to Syria because you're an Assad apologist. Let's talk about it. And she still, like, smoked him, but it was like, it's only because she's like, had to do it. And look, and I'm not like gonna, like idealize her. There's political blind spots, whatever, blah, blah, blah. But it's like, what the fuck is wrong with us? Why the fuck did the liberal class feel so comfortable being like accepting that she's a Russian asset? That she's being groomed by Russia. Are you fucking kidding me? When the ultimate irony is that without question in a general election, she'd have a much better chance of beating Trump than Joe fucking Biden. No, are you kidding me? A fucking a war veteran, a woman of color that's very telegenic and young and has kind of like bipartisan appeal here and there. They had to fucking cleave her out. And you know what pissed me off? Like, entities like mainstream entertainment industries fucking cleaved her away, and it was so stupid. It was so fucking stupid. And and people don't even remember, in the last election, 2006, she was the rising star of the Democratic Party. She was the vice chair of the Democratic National Committee. And then she saw how much they were fucking over the Bernie Sanders campaign. She spoke out against it and left, and then she got excommunicated. The jackals went on her, and now she's become this other thing. And the bullshit things people do to try to just dismiss them, right? So she's got all of these things in good faith. And then you got people being like, well, when she was young, she was anti-gay people. So, we can't elect her. Yeah, she got thrown into a fucked up situation. Her father was a fucked up, like, anti-gay marriage crusader, like a bigot against gay people. She grew up with that, conservative. She went to the Middle East to war as a fucking medic in Afghanistan and in Iraq, and her viewpoint has evolved that she supports LGBTQ rights and has voted for everyone. Has made multiple heartfelt videos about that. Has gone on and talked with the Humanist Report dude, who was like very wanted to see what she was about, and and he's like open to people having political evolutions because he's not a fucking idiot. He's great. So but but that can be thrown out as a thing, and then as a cudgel, and then people will be like, she's a fucking no. And the way we're so fucking manipulated is because there's so many systems of control, and I don't blame people. I'm just so frustrated by it that we all have such low political IQs. And yes, it's by design. It's like, Sheldon Wolin was this great political scientist. I don't know a ton about him, but he's somebody that Chris Hedges really looked up to. And Sheldon Wolin, I think he was at Princeton. He died a few years ago, and he wrote a book called Inverted Totalitarianism. Is how he views what America is. Like a traditional totalitarian state is one where the state powers, the government and the military, everything is so repressive on the people that it's like a totalitarian state, like say like under like Stalin, right? An inverted totalitarian state, he's saying because America, what's happened here is the levers of power have been stolen and taken over by the corporations, that we have a corporate state. So the corporate entity is what is suppressing us. So that's the type of totalitarianism it is. It's inverted totalitarianism. And he said separately, in the early days of like trying to have any sort of revolution or anything like that, like you have to just like look at what's going on. Like right now in America, even now, it's not repressive enough that it would warrant like the need for us to try to have some sort of violent overthrow of the government. Plus, it's not pragmatic because how militarized our country is, how militarized the police are from they get all the excess military stuff, the largesse, like MRAPs in fucking small towns for free. They just have to pay for shipping like it's a fucking QVC sale. So basically all of those people. Okay, so so then he says it's like, unfortunately, in a society where there is such a system of control and education is so marginalized and political IQs are so low, what can happen there is people can easily be ping-ponged and manipulated back and forth by the media and stuff like that because they don't really have a context to know what's going on. And that's obviously what's happening so much in our country. So at these early stages in that type of system that we're in, just to tell the truth is a revolutionary act. So what you're doing on every fucking episode of your podcast and your friends and and DSA as a whole and et cetera, that is the revolution now is getting a critical mass of people to not be fucking lost, to wake the fuck up. And it's not their fucking fault, but I don't care whose fault it is. Because guess what? When you tap into that connectivity of life, when you realize that your happiness is connected with other people's happiness, that's when like the party of life starts. It's so fucking fun. Your creativity opens up. So much bullshit that you're scared of goes away. You don't even have to be fucking scared to death anymore. You look at it like this. You're like, okay, this life is so fun. If there's something after it, awesome. If not, it's cool. Like, you can let go of so much shit, dude. And I've scurried all the way down the rabbit hole and back out again the other which way, dude. Like my mind, the extreme manic episodes that I've had, it's fucking crazy. For whatever reason, I'm this fucking weirdo comedian, like politics guy, but I'm very honest and you know what? And when I'm wrong, I'm cool with being wrong. But I am fucking angry right now because I know so many people are going to suffer and it's not fucking necessary. And I wish that people would just realize, like, who the real enemy is. And the real enemy are these people that suffer from sociopathy, actually pathological diagnosis of sociopathy, of being okay with accumulating everything at the ruthless expense of everybody else, which unfortunately that personality set works very well in a ruthless, competitive-based capitalistic system. You know, and those people are twisted and sick, and everybody else, yeah, maybe we want to have abortion, maybe we don't want to have abortion. You know what I mean? Like that is an important issue. And my thing is like I defer to woman's right for her body. But if somebody else's belief system, a religious belief system, and they feel that that's murder of a baby, I'm not. I don't think that. I don't think that that's not valid for them to have that thought. You know, like I think it's. I find it tricky if they're pushing it onto somebody else. But I mean, it's like if we're basically going to be held hostage for an election for the theoretical getting to keep Roe v. Wade alive, well, that's a system of control. Another system of control is the timeline on climate change. Like, here's my deal with that. I'm personal choice. I'm vegan. I've been vegan for 2 years, right? I do it for health stuff for me. I don't really proselytize about it. Also, like I support the Green New Deal, but I actually support the Green Party's version of the Green New Deal, the one that actually has to do with demilitarization, because it acknowledges that the military is the biggest polluter, and also has to do with an arms embargo in the Middle East. AOC's version of it does not have that. It's still obviously better than the status quo. Also, there's a lot of things I like about AOC. Obviously, I do not know why she never gave any credit to the Green Party for it and basically stole their platform 4 years later. And we all hate the fucking Green Party, though. Look, the Green Party, they have all sorts of internal issues and stuff like that. And the fact that they have not been able to get any sort of more traction, or we're not able to kind of capture the energy of the people in the country, means that it's like, it's not going to, they're going to have to roll up into some other organization. You know what I mean? Like, I actually like Socialist Alternative Party out of Seattle. Kshama Sawant's deal is kind of interesting. But anyway, like I'm for all of that stuff, and maybe I'm totally wrong with this. But like I think that if we come from it, but I don't like to be bogged down and scared of this 10, 12 year thing. If we don't get it by 10, 12 years, then the worst version of it is going to happen, because it's basically, it freaks everybody out. It's totally defeatist. We feel guilty. We feel like we're responsible, that we have to like, not use our plastic bags. Well, meanwhile, there's a system in place where 100 corporations are responsible for 71% of the emissions, but they put it on us. You know what I mean? Like we're a product. We're stuck in this system. But instead of the mentality was like, hey, guess what? There's these new technologies out there. We don't have to do it. We don't have to have people jumping into the middle of the earth and like coal anymore and like getting sick and stuff. We don't have to make our mountains look ugly by taking the tops off of them. We don't have to, put weird hydraulic fluid into the ground and have earthquakes happen and fuck up people's tap water. We can do this other stuff. We can figure this shit out, or we can have a blend and a mix. You know what I mean? And we can acknowledge that if it's all solar and we have to get those minerals, that there's going to be fucking, slave labor in the Congo doing that for us. It's like, but like the reason that I think that we need to have a sort of, let's do this because it's like exhilarating and excited, because otherwise, it's always going to be the system of control where half the group is like, no, this is bullshit. It's going to break the economy. And the other half is going to be like, we have to do it or we're all going to die. How can you not do it? And both groups think each other are fucking stupid and fucking like weak and all that sort of shit. And that's what we do in every fucking one of these issues, because the truth is they're offshoring more money than they could ever need. Like the offshoring of money. I watched the documentary, The Panama Papers, totally spun me out. Basically, it came out in 2005. The Panama Papers showed about how much offshoring that heads of state and rich people do, and drug cartels, et cetera, human traffickers, et cetera, all the money laundering stuff. And actually, it showed who some of the people were. Like the Prime Minister of Iceland had to step down. The 2/3 of like the ruling political class in Brazil crumbled. The Pakistani dude had to step down. David Cameron from the UK fucking had to step down, prime minister. It showed Putin how he like got $2 billion out of the country and then like right back to him through his best friend. Donald Trump's name was in it 3,450 times. You know what I mean? They revealed how big Delaware is as a tax shelter. Like one building having 250,000 businesses in it. Hello. And, my little next little leap I make of logic there is, oh, Joe Biden was like a senator there for 36 years. Well, there's some sort of crazy extreme, like kind of like firewall in Wilmington, Delaware, between him and the biggest money laundering operation in the fucking world, possibly, because the U.S. is now thought to be the second world's largest tax haven behind Switzerland. Like, we always think it's the Cayman Islands. Yeah, that's where we put our money. Where do you think, like, Russia, Ukraine, blah blah blah, they put all theirs? So I basically see it as Trump is laundering money for the Russians, and Biden is laundering money for the Ukrainians. But whatever. That's not even what I want to talk about. What I'm trying to say is, one of the journalists in this documentary, he goes, yeah, I always thought that offshoring of money was an aspect of the economy. He goes, but now that I see more of the big picture of it, I realize that it is the economy. It's like that much money. We're talking about like tens of trillions of dollars, right? So these people are hoarding generational wealth, and they're like, and they're like marrying each other and creating this kind of oligarchic separate society. We're talking millions and millions, not millions, I'm sorry, trillions, but I'm talking generations and generations of wealth, like more wealth than they could possibly spend, right? So if that's the case, it seems like they're not particularly worried about this 10 to 12 year catastrophic fucking time. To me, it's another system of control, just like it pissed me off that Al Gore decided when he was flying around in his jet talking about climate change. It really pissed me off that his plan of action with his business partner was to start the first carbon exchange when he thought the cap and trade was going to be passed. So basically, when a business, they basically, if they go over their carbon amount, they can like buy carbon credits from another business that is under there. It's called cap and trade. He was going to set up the exchange for that, like a stock exchange, so he'd get his little piece of his transaction. So the guy that's, okay, I'm not saying that it's not real, but when the guy that's promoting it is doing so, then he can set up the financial instrument to profit off of it. I mean, it doesn't like make it mean it's not real, but it's also like it doesn't help.
Yeah. Yeah. So
I don't know. I mean, I feel like that's like a third rail to talk about. I just know that the real enemies are the people that are stealing all of this money from us. Okay. Like, and now we got to watch all these commercials of these fucking businesses being like, we care about you, so we're going to give you 15% off your car insurance for 3 months. You know how much money they just stole from us? You know how much money we got stolen from us? The fact that they're giving us our little crumbs of $1,200 for the bailout. They just know they have to like tide us over so we don't pick up the pitchforks too quickly. You know what's going to happen when this little bit of this social safety net that they're giving us is gone? Once the people that are living in their places while the evictions are on a moratorium in New York for 3 months, once that ends, and like 75% of fucking restaurants are not going to fucking reopen. And so, yeah, I don't like people arguing about if Trump is doing it for the economy. You know what I mean? Like, we don't have time for this shit.
Yeah. So
but I'm not in politics anymore, you know?
So another question I have here is, what was it like being on RT America after the 2016 election, after you guys were accused of being Russian assets and all that type of stuff? What was that like?
It was draining, dude. It was draining and it was stressful, because the utter barrage and avalanche. It was very stressful, and it was incredibly like, you just had to like put your head down, because you know what it was for me. The ubiquitousness of that Russiagate narrative of like Russia meddling to win the election for Trump was so huge. It was such a fucking tsunami of a fucking narrative that there was no oxygen left for someone like me working at that channel at the time to respond or give pushback, because I was really backed into a corner. Because even if I would be telling the absolute truth about what's going on from direct sources and all that stuff, considerably more informed than someone who's, calling me a fucking traitor, anything I would say, they'd be like, well, you work there. You're being a Putin apologist. You're being a propagandist. Like, how could you do this? So for me, it was like, I had enough sane people around me that we would be able to, be there for each other and stuff like that. And then it just became all about the work and wanting to do good work. But then that became frustrating too, because like our show was getting really, really popular leading up to and through that election. Like all the hard work we put in, it finally felt like we were getting some traction. Because it's like, I'll be honest, fuck it, I'm not on the show anymore. I'm gonna fucking say it. The shit that we do on that show it's fucking amazing. Okay, the show is the best fucking political satire show in the fucking country. Okay, hands fucking down. And whoever's name is going through your head right now, that's fine. We cover the gnarliest, darkest fucking stories with no fucking hesitation. Are you fucking kidding me? Like, and get no mainstream coverage of it, and instead get the opposite. Lee's had hit pieces against him in the fucking New York Times, the Washington Post, and NPR. Lee, like, who is done nothing but just try to let people know what's going on. And I know that dude like a brother. He was there for me when I had like spun out manic episodes, when I was sick with bipolar disorder. Good friend, has always had my back. Very compassionate, loving, wonderful guy. And these fucking hacks went after him. And those are the liberal outlets. Disgusting. But yeah, it was real stressful. And it was the sort of thing where it was like, okay, we're going to put our head down and try to do the work. And then we see our numbers dipping down, all the suppression. Then the network has to register as a foreign agent, which was a fucking law that was put into place, by the way, during the lead up to World War II, that it would, so businesses in America that were collaborating with like Nazis would be like stopped. Like that was like the origins of it. So it was garbage. But the thing is this, unfortunately, I have some friends that really bought into it and probably still do, into the Russiagate thing. And they were trying to like make their bones on it. And I have some friendships got ruined, and they acted grotesquely towards me. And I feel bad about it. And I still think about it because I'm sensitive to that stuff. Like, even though I don't think I'm in the wrong in any capacity, I very well may reach out to them because I'm just tired of this, like, sitting on my soul, because it feels so stupid to me. Like we're going to let an interpersonal friendship be destroyed because of some fucking bullshit wag the dog fucking like news story, like a cover up for the Democrats not wanting to acknowledge that they lost an election because they're a fucking bunch of corporate tools and everybody fucking sees through it. Like, instead they had to do this thing, have no introspection whatsoever. So, you know what? It was stressful, but also because I believe in that show and believe in what I'm doing, it's like, it's kind of like, yeah, it's stressful, but fuck them. I'm doing this, It's like, that's the thing that bothers me, is like some people, they'll just see that green RT logo and they won't even like take in the content. It's like, are you that? Well, maybe they are that. Maybe they are that marshmallow brained. If we're like ping ponged all over the place, you know what I mean? But it's like, there's something like, Bill Hicks said, there's something about the truth. It always kind of sticks to you, There's just something about when you're hearing the truth. You kind of can't unhear it, Like, so yeah, I mean, I'm so grateful of what I got to do there, and it was good. And the truth is, I mean, I was there from 2014 till 2019, and you know how the saying goes, dude. Like, have a manic episode and take an extended leave of absence from work once, shame on me. Have a manic episode and take an extended leave of absence from work twice, even more shame on me. But yeah, so, it was like, I'm glad that I did that, but the truth is, dude, like certain stories, it's stressful, man. It's like, at one point, I thought I had a handle on it, where I was like, okay, I have some narrative distance for this. I just see the world and American politics as this stream of shit. It's just an endless stream of shit, and my job is to throw gumballs into the shit stream. Do I assume that the gumballs are ever going to do anything to the shit stream? No, but what am I going to do? Not throw the gumballs into the shit stream? You know what I mean? It's like that Hedges quote that Lee quotes, and now I'm quoting. Like, he says, like, I don't fight fascism because I'm going to win. I fight fascism because it's fascism. Whatever. Also, Chris Hedges, you should probably be like nicer to me when we hang out, because you're very aloof to me. A few times I've met him, I'm just kidding. But it's like, yeah, my fucking name, Chris. Like, get over. I'm just kidding. But yeah, So yeah, so honestly, like that Bana Alabed story, like look that shit up, dude. That Oops CNN, like Bana Alabed, Banaa Alabed, whatever. That story is really fucked up. Um, Another one that really got me. Oh yeah, and this was towards the end, one of my last segments, just a video blog. Fuck, man, like the that very very popular New York Times podcast, The Daily.
Mm-hmm.
It's like it's their like biggest digital asset, like at least 5 million listeners a month, and sometimes informative, interesting, well done podcast. But like when it comes to foreign policy, sometimes it's absurdly and nefariously manipulative. Like they have an episode where they're talking about Venezuela and Maduro, and the way that they put this thing together, it was so clearly to get the liberal class on board for regime change war down there, and it made me apoplectic. And I made like video responding point by point of what was going on. They even talked about Salvador Allende in it and stuff like that, and kind of manipulated that narrative to somehow like make it work. Like they had said like they're like, yeah, and and Salvador Allende's daughter said like Maduro, he's no Allende, like creating, yeah, crazy. And the dude that was interviewed, this guy Nick Casey, he's the bureau chief for the Andes bureau of the New York Times. So those certain Latin American, South American countries, and like I'm looking into him and stuff like that, and I'm like, holy shit, the way that this is presented, there's no way this is even his worldview and his journalistic take. He is absolutely a CIA asset. Absolutely. It's like weird if he wasn't. And so that's what I was like thinking. Ben Norton, who's a friend of mine, who's a great journalist with the Gray Zone Project, does stuff with Max Blumenthal. You should have them on if you want to. And I mentioned the dude's name, and he goes, "Oh yeah, that guy's CIA." Like he said it before I even said anything. So it's like the idea that we think Operation Mockingbird stopped in the 70s, garbage. And that was evidence when it came out that the CIA has journalists, like it would be stupid if they didn't. I mean, but it's like all this shit I'm saying, I feel like your audience is gonna be like, yeah, like they probably know most of this stuff. But could you imagine if this is just like put out in a vacuum? Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, okay, it's like, do your listeners know, like, for example, do your listeners know about like Operation Mockingbird and Operation Paperclip and stuff like that?
I would imagine so. I mean, I know about those things, so yeah.
Well, you gotta let people know about Operation Paperclip. How we collaborated with the fucking SS Nazis directly after World War II to better spy on the Russians. That's pretty negativo. And we moved a whole bunch of their scientists and people into America.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The last question I have here is, what kind of music do you listen to?
I don't listen to music, only politics. No, I'm just kidding. But okay, I listen to. There's a lot of stuff that I like. Let's see, what am I listening to? Let me see, what am I listening to recently? You know what I do? Sometimes I get fixated and listen to the same song on repeat.
Mm-hmm.
Ooh, I just today, and I hadn't been listening to them in a while, but I love them. I went back and started listening to Radiohead again. For me, like two albums that were very transformative for me were Radiohead Kid A and Amnesiac, which came out around 1999 or so. And it was basically the album after, after OK Computer. So basically, the album. So I was listening to Kid A today, and I was listening to the Bends, which are the albums after and before OK Computer. Did you ever get into Radiohead?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, then the worm has turned for you, bro. All right, so so basically, their second album, The Bends, is like really kind of cool, like rocky album. You know what I mean? Real kind of like it's really got some great shit going on, right? Next album, OK Computer, is almost like this bridge album because it's like half like that rock thing, but then he's really starting getting into this interesting electronic sort of like digital kind of like eerie kind of sound and vibe. You know what I mean? And that's why OK Computer is seen as such a transitional, seminal, fucking awesome album. Then Kid A, I think, is like the full incarnation of that evolution. And it's just such a beautiful, amazing album. And Amnesiac is the B-sides of it. And these albums were the sort of thing where the first couple times you listen to them, you're like, what the fuck is going on? But then you get really, really into it. And so it's like, if in a perfect world, like, like the last time I make love to somebody, Kid A and Amnesiac will be playing in the background. You know what I mean? Which is such a weird thing to say, because it's like the perfect amalgamation of like the digital age that we live in, but also kind of like that angst and that humanity. It's just fucking cool. All right. But basically, yeah, Kid A, Amnesiac. On Spotify. I've been listening to that. Also, I've been listening to on repeat certain songs. I've been listening to on repeat, Four Non Blondes, the song
Yes.
What's Up. Yeah, I've been listening to What's Up a lot on repeat. And here's something the government doesn't want you to know, Gregory. Here's something the government doesn't want you to know. That Four Non Blondes album from 1992, that entire album is good, bro. Not just a single, dude. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm gonna steal that one from you now. I'm gonna start tweeting. I'm gonna start tweeting out saying the government doesn't want you to know that Limp Bizkit is actually a good band. You should listen to them. I'm gonna start tweeting that now.
Yeah, you should. But actually do it for things that you care about, though. You know what I mean? Like, do you actually think Limp Bizkit is a good band?
Yes, of course I do. Backwards hat.
It's all about the he said, she said bullshit.
Yes, I love Limp Bizkit. Yeah, Linkin Park, Korn, stuff like that.
It was all for the nookie. Yeah. I was coming up when that shit came out. All right, cool. And you know who else? Okay. Oh, all right. I'll bridge the gap for you. Oh, yeah, you're into all the metal and shit, dude. All right.
Yeah.
Bridge the gap. I don't know if you're going to like Radiohead. Oh, are you going to check out Radiohead, though?
I will.
Okay, Kid A. Go right to Kid A. You know that song Karma Police they have, right?
I've probably heard it. The only one I know off the top of my head by them is Creep. I've heard that one.
Guess what? Creep is their first album. Pablo Honey. The band almost broke up over that song. It got so popular that Tom York, the lead singer, was like, "This is fucking too much. We don't want to be like one-hit wonders like this." Because when you get exposure like that on a song that big, you really do risk becoming a one-hit wonder. And they knew that it was like nuts when they like went on vacation and like left, and they were like they were in Budapest, and they walked into this like bar, and in the back room there's this band. They're fucking covering Creep, and they were like, "What the fuck?" But anyway, Anyway, Karma Police is a really cool song, and that's on OK Computer. Okay. Oh, did you ever get into Black Rebel Motorcycle Club?
Never heard of them.
UK band. They've been around for a while. I think you'll like them. It's kind of like it's cool. Like it's like hard rock. What about the Black Angels?
Never heard of them either.
Dude, get in there with the Black Angels, dude. Let's see. Okay, I'll give you two more, and then I'll stop being a music explainer. Oh, okay. I'll tell. I almost. What I've been listening to a lot. The most that I've been listening to since, I've just been listening to Chris Cornell.
Yeah.
A shit ton. Soundgarden stuff, Audio Slave stuff, solo stuff. And for real, this election cycle, if anybody asks me who I'm going to vote for, I'm just telling them that I'm going to vote for the ghost of Chris Cornell. That's all I'm going to
That sounds like a good choice.
I'm voting for the ghost of Chris Cornell. So yeah, that is what I'm listening to. And other shit too. I've been, you know what? I'm getting cliche. Like, I'm listening to Rage again. I'm listening to Sunday Bloody Sunday by U2. Like, I'm listening to Uprising by Muse. Like, it's like, whatever.
Well, that's good. Thank you.
That's good.
Well, thank you so much for coming on. Where can we find you on social media, and where can we find your new podcast at?
Yeah, okay. Well, the best way to stay connected to me is to join my newsletter at jfodnews.com. That's jfodnews.com. And it makes me really happy when you guys do that. So it means a lot to me. And then if you check out the podcast, it's called Take Your Pills Psychopath. You can find it any place you listen to podcasts. And just do those things. And my YouTube page, I've been working really hard on my YouTube page, uploading a lot of stuff. So that's youtube.com/jfodcomedy. And honestly, guys, like subscriptions, likes, anything like comments, that shit actually really means a lot to me. It means a lot to comedians, especially right now because we can't do a live performance. So it's like the weird social compact is that we are these like heroin addicts for attention, and like all this other stuff is like kind of like a methadone clinic version of like a live performance. So the social compact was always we would do a live show, you guys would have fun, we would get that feedback and be appreciative of that. So now like I know even if I sound like a needy bitch, it's fine because I am a needy bitch. Like yeah, join in the newsletter, listen to the podcast, send me an email at takeyourpillspod@gmail.com to say that you like this interview, or anything is just helpful because I'm trying to make this sustainable for myself, and it's really, really challenging. So yeah, so jfodnews.com. And I hope that I've guilt tripped you enough into doing all of those things.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, dude. Thank you for having me. It's just super fun.